Utah's Pleasant Grove in August 1989. While his parents went on a week-long vacation, Justin Clegg, 16, spent 6 days alone at home, leaving his 3 siblings to stay with friends and family. He was going through something troubling and terrifying. He related this tale to the psychologist he saw. The psychologist's progress notes will be made available to the public following Justin's death in 2017, Thursday, August 14th. I was looking forward to having a car, being by myself for a week, and having the entire house to myself. I eventually persuaded my parents to let me stay there by myself, though it took some time. Null and void, since it was summer break, I probably stayed up until 9 a.m. Alone the first morning. Early that morning, my parents drove to the airport, where they met up with friends and cousins to drop off my 2 younger sisters and brother. For me, the beginning was typical of a summer day: eat breakfast, get up, and then relax for a while before deciding what to do that day. I called my friend a few hours later to find out if she had any plans. After some conversation, we decided to watch a movie at 7 p.m. Even though we watched a movie together, I clearly remember everything that happened after we got home. I did what I always do. I parked my car in the garage, got out, got up, and opened the door to the dirt rock room. My sister's room was on my left, and the laundry room was on my right as I entered the basement. At the point when I opened the entryway and strolled in nonchalantly, I was frozen with dread. I was unable to comprehend the strange low-pitched voice and the radio's shrill static that came from the basement. Although I was certain it had been turned off when I left, I assumed it was coming from the stereo of my sister. I immediately convoluted, ran back to the carport, hopped in my vehicle, and drove off as quick as possible. My initial impression was that someone had entered the house and was downstairs. I quickly made the decision to call the police from the payphone closest to me. I drove to the nearby church and waited for the police to arrive after calling the police. I got in the car as soon as I saw the police car drive by the church and started following them to my house. I drove there, parked the car in the street, and walked up to the police officers. They inquired as to whether I was Justin, to which I answered I was. I explained that I had just returned from a movie with my friends and had been asked to explain the situation. I could hear what sounded like radio static as I entered the house, as well as a strange voice coming from the basement, most likely from my oldest sister's room because she had the stereo. When I left the house earlier that evening, I was certain it wasn't on, and I was worried someone had broken in. I told them. I was instructed to wait outside while the house was searched. As they pulled out their weapons and flashlights, I opened the garage door and watched as they entered the house through the same door I had previously used. I was still extremely scared, so I chose to get into the vehicle and lock the entryways while hanging tight for them. Prior to getting into the vehicle, I actually look at the rearward sitting arrangement through the window to ensure nobody was back there concealing hanging tight for me. The exact duration of the police officers' search of the house is unknown, but I would estimate 15 to 20 minutes. I kept looking behind me while I waited, hoping to see someone in the back seat or someone approaching the vehicle. When I saw the police officers emerge, I let out a sigh of relief. They gave the impression of laughing, which eased my mind. It must imply that nothing was found and that everything was safe. A police officer approached my car's window and used his flashlight to tap on it. As I moved it down, he said, "All is well, young fellow." The radio was on in the storm cellar, so we switched it off. It was presumably only an error with the sound system. "Call us if you require anything else, but you can enter safely." We went through the entire house. I remember thinking that I ought to spend a week at my cousin's house as I watched them drive off. 10 minutes separated them. In the end, I decided I was just being lazy and really wanted to enjoy my week by myself because I rarely get time like this. Tuesday, August 15th. Because I didn't get much sleep, if any, that morning, I felt terrible when I awoke, none that I was able to recall anyway. I jumped at every little sound I heard. The night was very long. I stopped at the top of the stairs that led down to my sister's rooms as I headed toward the kitchen. I experienced a chill and an unsettling sensation. I noticed how quiet the house was as I stood there and looked down the dim stairwell. I wished, in part, that I had actually gone to my cousin's house last night. I decided to go back to bed after breakfast to see if I could get rid of the headache that had started during breakfast. I thought it must be lack of sleep. When the Walkman in my room suddenly turned on, I thought I had been asleep for a few hours. I thought I heard something whisper my name. Even though it was only a few feet away, it was very loud. The strange, deep voice came back to me. I got up immediately and backed into a corner of my bed. I don't remember anything from that day after that, with the exception of some time later. When I opened my eyes, I remember sitting on the couch and staring at the television. It was late into the evening because it was already dark outside. I had to take a few minutes to find my way around. I was so lost that I felt like I was in a dream. What took place in my day? I considered myself. After eating something after getting up from the couch, I went upstairs and went back to bed. August 16th, a Wednesday. That morning, I was standing in front of the stereo in my sister's room. As I screamed, I stumbled backwards, hit the wall, and then fell. I didn't know how I got to the basement. I was terrified and just lay there for a while. Out of nowhere, my sister's sound system came blasting on. I started shaking as soon as I sat up against the wall. I heard the voice once more coming out of the stereo a few seconds later. Once more, I was unable to comprehend what it was saying. It almost sounded like chanting. After getting up, I rushed over to it and removed the plug from the outlet. After that, I dashed quickly to my bedroom and climbed into bed. My thoughts began to veer off in many different directions as I lay there. I questioned myself out loud. What's going on? Am I going crazy? It was late in the afternoon when I awoke, so I must have fallen back asleep. Through my window, I could see that the sun was setting in the west and setting lower. I felt awful as I got out of bed. It appeared as though I hadn't slept in days, but all I had been doing was sleeping. It made no sense at all. I just stared at the floor as I sat on my bed for hours without moving. After some time, I stood up and went downstairs. I went back to bed after eating a lot and drinking half a gallon of water because I was starving to death. Thursday, August 17th, I had the most horrendously awful bad dream that evening. In my dream, I was hiding in my closet and watching a stranger sleep in my bed. I peered down and saw I had a blade in my grasp. After that, the person in my bed got up and was staring at me. I was asked to come out of the closet by them. I could see that the person in my bed was glaring at me with a sinister smile as I slowly emerged from the closet. The individual indicated the bedroom wall. After that, I walked over to it. I took the knife and made a deep cut in my arm after standing there for a while and looking at it from below. As it fell onto the ground, blood came out of my arm. I dropped the blade, then, at that point, with my hand, plunged 2 fingers into the cut on my arm, then began composing something on the wall. I stood there looking at the wall after I had finished writing, but I was unable to see what I had written. I heard the basement stereo of my sister suddenly blaring. At that point, I awoke, got up, and got out of bed. A pool of blood could be seen on the floor as I looked around. I was horrified when I saw the wall's writing and turned to look up. Angelus Mortis was written in blood on it. I yelled, "What the hell is going on?" to the crowd. I went to the bathroom and bandaged the fairly deep cut I could see when I looked down at my arm. At the point when I returned to my room, I remained there gazing at what could be inevitable. The meaning of the words was beyond me. I started contemplating whether I was really conscious or not. I couldn't tell anymore what was real and what wasn't. My head was spinning, so I went back to my bed and looked over at the time. It was 3 o'clock, August 18th, Friday. I recall opening my eyes. I was standing outside while there was a lot of heavy breathing. As soon as I realized where I was, I jumped back and gasped. It was late at night, and I was outside in our neighbor's backyard looking through their glass door. When I looked down, I saw that I was holding our large kitchen knife, and I almost screamed. I went inside as I slowly backed up toward my house. I set the kitchen knife down on the counter when I got inside. I stood in the kitchen for a long time and looked out the window. It might have taken hours. I am unsure. I'm not sure what I was thinking at the time. I just remember staring into the gloom through the window. I returned to my bed and fell asleep as the light outside began to fade. I then made my way back to my bedroom. August 19th, a Saturday. Someone horrifiedly yelling my name woke me up, shocking me to my core. Justin, put an end to it right away. As I came to, I was remaining over my most youthful sister. She had her arms raised in a defensive position and was heavily bleeding. In complete shock, I saw my right hand as I looked up. It had our kitchen knife in its hand. When my father charged at me from behind and pushed me to the ground, I was about to hit her again. He eliminated the blade from my hand and told my mom, "Joni, call the police, presently." I observed as my mother rushed to the wall-mounted phone and dialed 911. She looked at me with a complete expression of dread as she talked to the police. For as long as I live, I will never forget the look she gave me. It will haunt me until my death. I was taken into custody by the 2 police officers who had visited our house earlier in the week. The psychologist asked Justin at the end of the conversation if he understood what Angelus Mortis meant. In Latin, Justin replied, "Angel of Death." He then, at that point, asked him what he thought the sound system haphazardly turning on with a weird voice was. The answer from Justin was the Angel of Death. Justin spent the rest of his life in a mental health facility run by the state. As every year passed, he fell endlessly further into obscurity, at last to the point he as of now not imparted or even checked anybody out. He died in 2017 from obscure causes. Justin's family moved out of Utah in 1995 to an undisclosed area. For more terrifying, harrowing tales, please subscribe channel, like, and share video with others.